So next up, Dewi, and I'll just leave it up to you. Let's give him a big hand.
Hey. So my understanding of design has been shaped up by my upbringing on a farm, surrounded by the rural environment, then developing my education, my practice as a designer in an urban location. This is what shaped my design process as a practice, a mixture of both the farmer and a designer as one. So I designed a baler. The baler as a tool that communicated, a tool which traveled, a tool that collected data, wrapping it to, a tool which would bale my outcome as a designer declaring what the future of the farm space is. Traditionally, the baler is an agricultural device which is used to collect crops from the field. Whilst it moves forward to collect more harvest, the contraption then compacts the crop into a round or square shape. The shape being the bale is wrapped and dispensed in the field. My baler was created in response to using its function of collecting and building as a movement for my practice, created through the investigation of a relationship between the urban and rural, through identifying objects and spaces which play an important role in both environments. One of which I began the project with was the sheep pen. At the time, I recognized the sheep pen as a portable space, a space which could be packed flat and stored neatly, but also as a tool that would locate an area, using this structure at the time to facilitate workshops and discussions within the urban surrounding. The process of 3D printing the object was to question if the pen could have other uses outside of rural contexts, mapping it with new usage that would be used in the city. So I guess this is what began my process of the urban and rural as one. The research I undertook was based around the care in practice both a farmer and designer share. And a practitioner that played a heavy role in helping me explore that is the Dutch architect and theorist Rem Koolhaas. A particular lecture he shared explained how 98% of the world is occupied by the countryside, but more than 50% of the world's population live in the city. Koolhaas also stated how the countryside plays a role of nostalgia in the city too, with rural hints scattered inside the urban, reminding people of experiences they may have had in the past, or ones they wish to have in the future. An analogy which exposed me to the idea of which environment is the future for creativity. So I ran a short case study asking farmers to send me their designs, the problems that they solved on the farm. And being as my brother was the local postman back home, I asked him to help me connect with the farmers, sending out different newsletters for them to get in contact with me. I guess the main thing with that was I was able to create a network, a community in the area to just share skills. I wanted to understand what a rural space was, and trying to recognize if elements such as the agricultural architecture was seen in the city. Are there similar practices, parallel methods, used by both environments coexisting in one place? Obviously, the farm has space, and today that space is recognized as derelict on small farms in the UK, due to the development in modern farming practices of only cultivating one byproduct at a time. Farmers no longer need all that space, so what other uses can those structures provide? Farmers designing in the city was a concept I threw myself into, speculating the idea of farmers using CAD-aided equipment and facilitating workshops across the urban environment. Spaces, specifically so-called as fabricating laboratories, otherwise known as Fab Labs, are critical spaces where designers can develop their practice. Institutes containing equipment such as 3D printers, CNCs, or simply a desk which will support the creative development for designers and artists. Visits to London-based Fab Labs exposed me to how the spaces functioned, identifying what technology they had on offer. I began to see parallels, similarities I didn't imagine to begin with. I noticed equipment had similar interface to what agricultural equipment had too, even ramming promo videos from both backgrounds as one to try and basically make them as one. But this, I guess, was too forced, as it was just all about the sort of visual interaction. So the idea of tool sharing was something I found interesting, a space or an area that where people don't need to own every device to improve or continue their practice. This is what a Fab Lab essentially is, a space where tools, space, and knowledge can be shared, which is similar to the organisation of a farm. The rural community would share machines depending on the cost and needs of certain technology, a form of tool to bring people together. So the territory was set between the farm and Fab Lab. And my understanding of a Fab Lab was that members would co-work amongst each other, sharing the space, tools, and ideas and knowledge, therefore educating one another. This is where I recognise the rural and urban similarities, noticing how the farmers and designers can share as a practice to develop, so they can so even can they be mixed as one. CNCs, 3D printers, combines, and balers seem completely unrelated, but all play the comparable role. Their functionality of material input-output is the same. So I designed my own baler and used the baler as a tool for collecting. Whilst using the baler, it would collect material from the ground. This material I considered as data. It was an archive of locating where the baler had been. Whilst working with the baler, I would ask people to walk with me, using it as a tool of collecting conversations to understand what the urban and rural as one could be. Bearing in mind the first few walks had no real plan, I just wanted to place the farmer in the city and create conversations around the questions I had raised. During the course of the project, my grandfather passed away, and he was a farmer, and the farm he farmed is located 40 minutes south from London, 15 from Brighton, and 10 away from Gatwick. This is the farm my father grew up on. This is the space that made my project a reality. The space that will represent both the rural and urban, the space that will help farming become more. It will be the space what I have collected from the baler, representing the farm and Fab Labs can work as one. So, I just needed to organise what the baler had already collected, orchestrate how I even got there. How was I going to synergise the urban and rural together in reality? The agricultural baler makes physical objects, and so do 3D printers. I needed physical data representing what the Fab Lab and farm as one is. So by orchestrating a topic whilst using the baler, I recognised what crop it was we were going to bale together. So I took a minute and travelled back down to the farm, but this time with a baler, and met up with Steve. Steve had worked alongside my grandfather for 50 years. He knew exactly what the space was, and therefore he was the ideal person to discuss my proposition for the farm. I arranged the conversation around that, asking him questions with regards to how he would feel about the farm adapting to a new practice. I gained a lot of information, a lot of shared knowledge, and he explained my proposition for the farm would give the derelict barns a new function, utilising the space as an area to educate the urban and about the rural and vice versa. But he described it as a development, not as a change, bringing a new herd to the farm. The idea of educating represented what a Fab Lab is. It's a form of knowledge sharing with one another, growing too, and things grow on farms. The conversations generated was the bale. It contained the process of collecting knowledge that would help me reach my goal to represent both urban and rural in one space. It was a way for me to gain broader understanding of what the farm as a future space had to offer. It allowed me to use the research I collected in reality, as well as meeting new people to share that platform with. The baler's data represented the tool, which signified the ideology of what a Fab Lab is. The tool would be handed on. It would be given to the user, walking on the journey with it. This idea of passing on an artifact represented the system of tool sharing, and the data being the material collected from the ground represented space. I captured this by making my own tool. I constructed a saw on CAD, CNC in the body, and vacuum formed the custom handle. This allowed me to have a mould which would contain the physical information which was collected whilst using the baler. The film and audio collected generated a physical transcript, which allowed me to transfer the conversation onto a denim sleeve for the saw. The sleeve is a representation of how a farmer would wrap its bale to ensure it contained all the best nutrition. With my baler, it was a way to represent everything that was shared. The notion of transcribing what was said is what made the tool the bale. It captured the conversation as a physical object, making the data a physical bale. My project has become a reality as I agreed on moving back to the farm back in September. And I guess because of my understanding of where design has taken me, I'm able to sort of explore what the farm really has to offer and how am I able to look at the space differently. Facilitating to bring people together, but also synergizing practices as one too. Combine was created on a farm. It was designed using the baler. It's a space which would bridge the urban and rural together. And yes, I'm now a farmer, and face daily problems that a farmer sees, but it's phase 2 of what I want to happen. Being the farmer allows me to be the designer. It helps me to see how the space is used, and it helps me to constantly ask questions. The baler has all helped me recognize to do that. So the space, I wanted to explore creativity, mixing the rural and urban thinkers together. It's still a new venture for me, as I've only been there for 2 months, so I'm still working on how to even explain what Combine as a concept is. But that's all I know. It will be a space to share knowledge and tools. People help that, and I'm now working alongside agronomists, farmers, photographers, chefs, artists, designers, students, and trying to build that definition of what the urban-rural space really is. Already, I've achieved one event on the farm where we facilitated a workshop on growing businesses. It's a way for me to build a sort of case study and not sort of rely on myself to constantly speculate what would people change on the farm. So what I want to do is build up a series of case studies with people on the farm and see what that feedback is. The last cow was milked in '98, and the first workshop on the farm was last week. So yeah, things are constantly changing, but I'm still remaining to farm wheat, barley, and oats, but as a designer. Yeah, thanks. Please, if you want to have a chat, let me know.
Thank you very much.